Life could be a dream if I can take you up to paradise above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart.
I should have done the best for my daughter Lily, but I didn't. What an awful father I am. I am a single father who lives in Birmingham, England. This incident occurred while my daughter Lily was turning 10 years old. The Powerpuff Girls, a cartoon on Cartoon Network, was a favorite of my daughter Lily. I was a young man of 28 when Lily was born. My girlfriend had broken up with me a week after she was born, and I had never told Lily that her mother had never intended for me to raise Lily. As a result, I was left to raise Lily alone. I worked online writing news articles, which meant I had hardly ever left the house. I also played the homemaker role for Lily by doing things like giving her gifts that her mother would have done. How I give her gifts for Christmas and her birthdays, which is how this incident occurred. As I watched her play, a smile used to spread over my face. I also recall how she would dash about the kitchen, arms outstretched, imitating the sound of the wind. I was aware of the show's level of violence, but I knew my sweetheart knew better and not to let it influence her on her behavior. Again, I want to be a good parent and make sure that she's looking up to the appropriate people or things. Not long before her birthday, I really wanted to give her something special, something unexpected that she wouldn't soon forget. So I looked up the show on Amazon.com and eBay to satisfy my curiosity. The search engine's findings were promising. There was a wonderful trove of kid-friendly items, but the majority of them were soft toys and pricey collectibles. Honestly, she has plenty of those. Then I stumbled upon a picture of a DVD case. Half of Bubbles' head could be seen poking out from the bottom of the case with their eyes fixed on the outside with this cool lava lamp effect. Along with the classic Powerpuff Girls logo in pink and black, swerving strong wording at the top with some Japanese language that I just couldn't make out. Strangely, there were no specifics provided on the product from where it was going to be shipped. It would take some time. I sent the seller an email and received an unsigned response. There's really nothing like it. I decided to purchase it even though the whole cost, including postage, would be £10. However, it is my top priority to inspect the item before presenting it to my daughter. I only want the best for her after all. When it arrived, I kept the package hidden into my room until after my daughter had gone to bed. I went downstairs, poured myself some tea, and opened my laptop and took the wrapping off. With no more information, simply the photograph as it appeared on the eBay page. There is not even a barcode or credit suggestion. When I opened the shiny plastic cover, I discovered 2 DVDs that had the same graphic description, a half head of bubbles on them from the bottom poking out. The certification was what really caught me off guard the most. It had a BBFC certification of an 18 for some inexplicable reason. Even though it had been imported from Japan. 118? No way I'm showing this to my Lily. When I went back to the account on eBay, the seller's account was gone. Gone. I had to deal with this situation. God damn it. I believed it was my duty to make an independent judgment on what I personally thought of the show, without understanding anything about it. How was I meant to get rid of it? The vendor did, and it was due to my intense interest. I should have just got her a stuffed toy. I continued to wonder how I had come to possess the title that seemed to be produced in Japan but was actually in Britain. There would obviously be more copies accessible if Britain certified it, wouldn't there? I came to the conclusion that it was a unique product and that there was only one copy, and then it was possibly sent to Japan as a kind of unique present to whoever. possibly the vendor itself. I inserted the first disc into my laptop, just simply titled Episode. I connected the headphones and observed its setup. I chose Episode on the start screen that appeared, which was simply black with white writing. A brief period of white flashed over the screen. Although I was certain I had seen something in that one white frame, I dismissed it as maybe being an error of some sort. None of the regular episodes featured an introduction. It all began with the professor, I can't quite recall his name, staring outside of his front yard at the stars. I checked my volume after noticing that it was completely silent, but it was at a significant volume. There was no desire on my part to raise it. He appeared to be completely cut off from his surroundings as he gazed up at the moon that was still hanging there. He entered the home after that, and he settled into a chair in front of his warm chimney. Focusing on him, everything about him was completely in the dark. A frame of an image of Bubbles flashed due to some subtle error. With a deep red ring around her pupils, she seemed very furious. The other day, Lily had witnessed the scene on an episode where they had cornered her sister Blossom. I had no idea what the plot of the episode was, but the way the gray forms crept closer gave me the creeps. It was just that way. When the camera panned back to the flicker of the fire to reveal the professor sitting all alone in the dark in his chair, he was shown to be inconsolable. The way the animation zoomed in on his labored breathing seemed a little spectacular. His skin tone was almost real color. You could see the lights fluttering and the wave of the darkness encircling his face. He was huddling to himself and leaning in, looking utterly horrified. I could only make out his breathing over the headphones. What was happening? The loud creak of the door slowly opened by my side of the living room shocked me. I hoped not to be Lily for fear to giving it away from her. But if it was appropriate, that was why I was watching it in the first place. I had absolutely no desire to cover this for any certain situation. I swore under my breath as I felt the draft and let out a small sigh of relief. Why had I gone off to turn off the lights? I was quite reluctant to move. Utonium turned to glance up at the stairs while gasping and hearing the creak of the girl's bedroom door as I resumed my viewing. I made an effort to laugh a little as I realized how similar the two events were. I knew I had to relax. When I realized my tea had become ice cold so rapidly, I leaned out to close the door before picking it up to drink. Utonium was staring back at the TV with bulging, ruddy eyes that were eating the whites of its pupils. I thought I was beginning to comprehend why the DVD wasn't very well liked. It might have been a test for an unaired episode. Maybe it was made for an adults. That made sense. But this was play geared towards young females, so maybe not. The professor got up from his chair and made his way slowly up the stairs. You had the impression of walking alongside him because the angle was over his shoulders. The steps appeared to be miles away and far from him. The stairs appeared to get farther away from him with each step he took, dragging him back into the shadows. He froze when a shadowy figure suddenly appeared on the screen in front of him. I did too. He turned to face the camera, glancing side to side while drenched in sweat. A merry chuckle briefly resonated before going away. He reluctantly looked around as he ascended the steps. He reached the top and reached for the girl's room handle when he heard someone coming down the corridor from the other side. A short, completely dark shape stood there at the end of the hallway and was facing him. Unsettled, a few seconds passed until it finally looked to be gliding along in the dark. My headphones picked up the professor's sweat once more, and as I watched, I lightly scratched my face on the sides. This was what? What in the world was that? I felt a strong and warm grip on my shoulder and someone's breath on my ear, and now I can make out a little girl saying, Asubu. I screamed blindly into the pitch black, and I turned on the lights. Nothing was found after I turned on the lights. Exactly nothing. I became aware of how loud I was and was tempted to go upstairs to see if Lily was awake. I pressed the pause button and kept listening out to her. Not even a whisper. Although I wanted to stop watching the DVD, I couldn't help myself. It's possible that this is a version made for adults. If so, maybe someday when Lily is old enough, but not right now. What are you saying exactly? You cannot give this to your daughter! When I hit play, I saw that the shadowy figure was barely a few inches away from Utonium. It had a round, gray face with no eyes, and it stared up at him. Slowly opening its mouth, it took a deep breath. While doing so, its high-pitched dropped into a protracted, deep drone, reaching a tone I don't believe any voice or instrument will ever be able to produce. The screen gradually bent and twisted onto itself, and abruptly raised its pitch to a siren-like level. After a brief period of white noise, the figure briefly disappeared from view before returning into a predetermined regular format. In a panic, Utonium peered around him to check if it had moved. What happened to it? Had he lost sight of reality? Was he hallucinating? Was it all in my head? He turned to face the camera, which was slowly a close-up of the creature's screaming face on the screen. I jumped and reduced the sound because I was afraid. There was only one more frame. The DVD was halted after I rewound it. It showed her sisters standing next to each other in gray, their pajamas torn as if they were rotting or decomposing, with this edgy smiles carved on their face. Utonium burst into the girl's room and discovered the two peacefully dozing. He was used to seeing Buttercup and Blossom, but not Bubbles at this point. As he approached the edge of the bed, and he observed them sleeping, he got down onto his knees. He stroked Buttercup's hair while grinning. Once again standing, he turned to the window side end of the bed, where the blonde darling should have been sleeping. As the professor left the room and turned off the lights, slowly emerging from the end of was the same gray figure with giggling darkened eyes and torn lips. She lunged towards the girls before the screen abruptly went black, cutting out all sounds, and the word episode reappeared. It was completed. Before I rejected it, I sat there in stunned silence for a few moments. I simply put, I had no idea what to do. Can I use it for anything? The other DVD remained to be watched. None at all. I didn't want to run the risk of this being discovered by an unintentional person. I inserted the DVD while shuddering in response to Bubbles glared on the DVD cover. Its name was Real. This one did begin with an actual intro, and the theme played, and my heart settled a little. Real was the title once more announced, but there were no credits. Another black screen card with Japanese letters, and the name Asubu in brackets then showed. Before the screen darkened once more, loud static and a variety of industrial sounding echoes as though recording in the factory appeared. His lab included uranium, and it appeared while he was working on a new creation. The girls came out from behind him and watched him as he poured the entire contents of the chemical X into the mixture, his face taking on a severe, determined expression. The pot grumbled and smoke ascended from the concoction while the girls, terrified, kept their distance. Before Bubbles flew over to the murky mixture of filth in the pot, Utonium stood back, startled. She breathed the smoke as it curled and swirled on her face, entering her lips, then reached her neck. She started to twitch as she remained frozen in puzzlement. I jumped when the living room's lights went out. I paused the DVD and took a quick look around. I had to confirm. At her twitches, there flickered a number of strange frames that were, oh my, completely unlike anything I've ever seen. Most of the pictures were accurate representations of the bad guys that, for all I know, the females occasionally faced off against on the show. Some appeared to be dead, insane, or deformed. There is simply nothing else like it. After a brief period of silence and static, Bubbles' crimson eyes and gray skin color flickered back onto the screen as she continued to stare at it. Once more, the soundtrack started in reverse. She emerged from the ceiling in a flash. Instead of following her, the girls just glared at the hole that she had caused in the ceiling. I'll never forget this, I promise. The next picture showed their teacher sitting at a desk in the classroom. She gave Bubbles a bare-teeth sneer as she turned to face the entrance that Bubbles had used to answer. She launched herself at the television and screamed loudly, surprising me once again. Before static showed and changed to real life, it was difficult to distinguish. As the movie played, many rippling lines climbed the screen. The video displayed a man while walking towards the person holding the camera while wearing a suit. It was occasionally jolted and handheld. The entire exchange took place in Japan, and the man's smile was uncharacteristically broad and extended out. His eyes, which were fixed on the camera, showed it hate and hunger. The surroundings suggested that it was an airport. I scowled a little in perplexity. It briefly went to static before returning with a clear picture and clear audio of a young child holding the exact same DVD I had. While the girl stood up and proudly held that rare specimen in her hands, the Bubbles picture continued to gaze at me. She pointed out Bubbles and chirped in the same language as she stood in front of the camera. Once more, there was a deafening static. All of the feeling tore at me. I saw that I was clinging onto the chair's fabric. Fluent Japanese was being spoken quickly in a panicky tone as the camera stopped shaking and moving and concentrated on the classroom of kids in Japan, crying and wailing as they were hidden in the corner of the room out of despair and dread lingering in the overall sound and experience. Particularly when I heard the cameraman sobbed, my heart was thumping like a jackhammer. He was shaking. At the opposite end of the space, a small individual was standing shrouded in a gray robe and hidden from view, before a splash of red touched the lance. The cameraman cried out to someone. The camera swung back and forth along the hallway, showing the father running and the kids trailing behind him, with piercing shoutings as he sobbed loudly, and he experienced his sadness. The children shouted and the focus vanished, before static took over and the cartoon returned to the screen. More blood splattered on the lance, and I came to the realization, after I observed it, the person who was filming it on camera, he briefly fixed his recording device near the creature's position in the mirror. His death was his, whom I purchased the DVD from. I recognized him from his profile picture. Oh God, I was simply in awe. I hadn't merely been a scattering in unrelated real-life scenes. It was an alert. Once more, there was silence as the camera rolled away from a mass of people and fixed on Bubbles' lifeless, mangled body. Blossom was hunched over and soberly observed his sister's body. Utonium was crying and Buttercup was by his side, soothing him. Black began to consume the screen, devouring it completely. The following image faded in, showing Bubbles moving slowly in the direction of the camera with angry crimson eyes. As the wall behind her scrolled slowly, loudly, labored breathing filled the headphones and grew louder and louder over time. All of a sudden, I was back at the title screen. Silent. It had end. I was in shock, and I was able to move. I reached for my headphones and took them out of my ears after a short while. The DVD was removed from the laptop, and I put it back in the case. I had to get rid of it somehow. Since I have watched it, was so unbelievable. I heard a loud hiss, almost like a whisper, coming from the other side of the corridor. As I walked up to my room, after turning out the lights, I felt shivers. My body shivered, and my eyes jerked back and forth, back down the hallway. I found myself staring at a short black body coming from the end of the corridor as I ascended the flight of stairs. It let out a giggle, and it said that goddamn word, Asubu. I quickly dashed into my room and slammed the door. My throat tightened as my heart raced. I was unable to breathe or think. I was on the verge of crying when I heard a knock at the door. I reached out and grasped my own skin while biting my lip to find Lily. I yanked open the door. She croaked, rubbing her eyes as big bags sat beneath her eyes.
Daddy, I had a bad dream.
I just told Lily to go back to bed and we can talk about it in the morning. I had to consult myself on what I witnessed. I was scared out of my mind. The next morning, I searched up the DVD, and it was made by the same guy who sold me the DVD. The seller was being investigated in Osaka, Japan, which is where the DVD was initially produced. He was detained in Osaka and is currently being held in prison. He was questioned and is now waiting a trial for a potential house invasion, potential cyber stalking, mass Japanese children genocide, illegal cult, and potential unlawful activity. Apparently, I wasn't the only one, as the reporter said that many parents were scared from this. It was to spread the word about the Akuryo cult he held when he made that DVD. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. I kept remembering the words Asubu in my mind since then. I decided to research it and translate it to English. I don't want to tell you what it means.
Originally penned by James Rosgrave, the night the events occurred, the father, who was subsequently related to this incident, thought he had saw an insane intruder in his home. He had alerted the authorities, but when he checked his home on his own, he discovered nothing. Mr. Rosgrave and his daughter are safer now, and they have since given the DVD to the Birmingham police, who are now investigating it. After viewing the footage, it was discovered that the people involved were killed both on and off screen. The Birmingham police force were therefore confirmed that the film was an actual snuff film. We hope no one to find this DVD and be kept safe somewhere in the police station. In other discovery, Lily, the daughter of James Rosgrave, went missing after the incident, but people claim to see her in a dark skin and a dark gray robe. Keep safe and we'll figure out more another time.